Welcome to FFC Top 3, a show where we, your FFC hosts, count things down from 3 to number 1. Thank you for joining us this week. If you have a suggestion for a topic for Top 3, be sure to drop us a note in all the different places, Twitter, @FocusFireChat, in our Discord, or even email us at focusfirechat.com, at gmail.com. There we go. We actually had a email come in this last week with a really good suggestion that I think we're going to do next week. But this week, we're going to discuss our top 3, and I can't believe we haven't done this one yet because we made a joke about it for a year and a half.
Just let it go.
Oh my gosh. Top 3 Disney movies. And I put some stipulations on this.
Stipulations.
Can't do Star Wars.
You censored us is what you did.
I told the boys they can't do Star Wars or Marvel movies, essentially, because of the acquisition that Disney did of those two franchises. But yeah, I didn't. Okay.
This is already going off.
I loosened the stipulation a little bit. It doesn't have to be animated, like strictly animated, though, right?
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, I guess we'll give you that one.
I give it and I take it away.
Why do you think you're the 9? Stop it.
Wait, I'm not Black Tar.
Yeah, you're
Listen,
getting close to that.
Listen,
you
Dusty.
You want to keep going down this road.
Hey,
Listen,
now.
Dusty.
Gosh. Oh, man. We're starting this one off great. Beard, you're going first.
Before I forget to mention it, and everybody here on the show can hear it too, I've got thoughts that we need to work through for that stuff.
Oh, yes.
Really? You do?
Oh, yes.
You are such an anomaly in the community to have thoughts about the revelations of the 9.
Yeah, but I think my thoughts are a little bit further than what other people's thoughts
that
are.
May be.
That
may be.
Like, everybody knows that my thoughts are usually not everybody else's thoughts, right? Like, I'm usually kind of ridiculous.
I mean, are we calling the kettle black? I think we are.
I think we are.
Dust?
I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I don't actually have a good segue for that at all.
Nope.
Z in chat. His thoughts are not his own.
Oh, God, did you just compare me to Sir?
Disney movies.
Yeah. So I could cheat on this whole thing, as Green has pointed out, and I've already done this. I've already gone on this like huge tangent about talking about these. But Disney and Studio Ghibli had done a very large team up. If you're not familiar with Studio Ghibli, what's wrong with you? But
Green.
beyond that,
Hey.
yeah, really. Hayao Miyazaki's work is amazing. Like I said, I could probably cheat and use them for everything. I won't do that. There are legitimately like 3 other movies I can kind of pick from here that will sort of fit the bill. However, for my number 3s, I'm going to err on the side of caution, and I'm going to see if Green is okay with any of them. So I'm going to start with my number 3. Granted, I don't think this will be in any particular order because, like I said, I'm erring on the side of caution here. Roger Rabbit. Who framed
Roger?
Oh
that
my
Roger Rabbit
gosh.
is-
Listen. Just because you
Is that
like
what-
segregation of people based off the classes and their ethnicity does not mean that... Sorry. I'm just like... I can't watch that movie without being like, oh my God, the social commentary in this thing is so
I know.
bad. It's an amazing movie, but...
Where else are you going to see Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny on the same screen? I say this to every person that's like, how do you like Roger Rabbit? I'm like, for one, it's that really over-the-top noir-esque atmosphere, which is not meant to take itself seriously, but takes itself seriously on a couple of instances. Otherwise, though, like, you look over most of the stupidity that happens in that movie, and it's just a bunch of fun.
It's...
You know, I understand. Oh my God. Ooh. So, like, as a kid, I didn't appreciate that movie at all. Now, as an adult, I'm just like, how in the world did anybody allow me to watch this thing? What were they thinking when I was 10 years old? Are you crazy? They just came out with, like, I think it's the 30th anniversary or the 20th anniversary. I can't remember. I think it's 30th, though.
Oh
Yeah,
my god.
but Who Framed Roger Rabbit is still like one of my absolute favorite movies of all time to just like kick back and be like, yeah, this was my childhood. I have no idea how the hell this was my childhood, but this is my childhood. And I think between like that and Warren Beatty's Dick Tracy, which I would have thrown up here if need be, like Dick Tracy was another one of those that was like really kind of poorly received in a lot of rights.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it was a fun film because again, it was especially with like the screenplays that were done over the radio and everything as well. I think that it was very good for the kids in a lot of rights because it tried to dumb everything down. And then you actually get into the story of it, and you're like, this is totally not for kids. I don't know what they were thinking. But that's another one that they kind of had like these hands with Disney or whatnot as well, that wanted to pick them up and do something different. I think that's what like Roger Rabbit and Dick Tracy as a whole kind of show off, because they were willing to do something different in a way from what the norm kind of was for them, outside of like, here's a bunch of like fully cartoonesque titles, but we're trying to weasel some other stuff in. And I'll save my other one, or other two, I guess, for number 2. But yeah, I will leave that be for now. Again, I think my number 3 is going to be Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
That's fun. I think that one works.
I think it works too. And
it's pretty impressionable on a lot of
Oh my
for
God.
various reasons.
It is.
And especially too for the fact that it's like that mix of live action and cartoon.
Oh
you
God,
didn't see
it
that
was
often in the time that it was brought out as well.
That's
like,
what
that
I was
so ahead of its time.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, is like it was really one of the big ones that actually pushed the envelope with that. I mean, it pushed the envelope on a lot of things. No, I mean that, but the stylistic piece was like what I mean, I remember watching it and being like, just having like, I remember my mind just like completely exploding with the idea of like, you know, just the concept of actually being able to show that on the same screen. I thought that was amazing. And they did a really good job with it.
Comprehend that.
Oh yeah, no,
like
I mean like it was like watching your imagination on a movie theater, like on a movie screen. Like it was just I remembered that and being like, "Oh my gosh, they finally like tapped into something that, you know, I can relate to directly." Right. But yeah, then watching it a few years ago, I'm like, oh.
Maybe not.
I mean, you talk about how Pixar slips in all these adult jokes for parents now.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that happened back in the 80s. It's just very blatant now compared to...
Yeah, they've gotten more subtle over the years. I will give them that.
Think of like the first season of Pokemon, for instance, because of all the adult jokes that are in there, and how kids never picked up on that stuff. Like that's the level. Like Roger Rabbit is like a 10 on the obvious meter as soon as you hit adulthood, versus Pokemon where it's like a 2, and they really have to be slick with the way that they throw it in there. Like it's obvious that it's a very, very different kind of time that we're sort of living in, and the humor and the wit has to be there in different ways from typical, for sure.
Yes.
Anyway, I could gush about Roger Rabbit all day. I think it's Blue's turn.
It is Blue's turn.
This is actually one that I mentioned last week, and it's a short, and I just blanked on what year it was, but it's Donald in Math Magic Land. My God, this is like I can't express like how strong memory of just sitting down as a kid and watching this. And this was like one of those like Disney educational movies, and it just, oh my God, it was so good. Like it just, they really didn't, they didn't really pull a lot of punches. It was Disney, so they didn't show like the full history of Pythagoras, but they showed you kind of his strong opinion of people who didn't believe in him. Let's just put it that way, gently. And like I just like the different aspects and the different stuff that they cover. I remember as a kid, watching it and being like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Like it just, I don't know. To me, it's always stuck in my head as being one of those really, really strong memories. And, for me, that's actually more important in a way than having an enjoyable movie, I guess, if you would say.
Well, I mean, it's enjoyable because you have those memories tied to it. It's not like it's something that you'll pop in and watch now necessarily, but
I don't know. I probably would. I mean, it's a pretty entertaining. I mean, I'll be honest. It's a pretty entertaining little, and it's only, I think, if I remember right, it's only like 30 minutes long, 45 minutes long. It's a really short one. But it's like, yeah, if I really actually would strongly encourage, if you haven't gone and watched it, it is something that I don't know. Like, it's just really, I don't know. It's just really good. I think it's something that actually stood up pretty good to the testament of time and stuff. Mostly because it's Donald Duck being just a jag off towards ancient thinkers, which is hilarious on so many levels.
Well, I mean, Donald Duck in general is just he's a nut. Like, even my number 3 has Donald Duck in it. Because I love the Three Caballeros.
Oh my gosh.
It was such a stupid, I think it was a short too. I think it was just a series. And the trio.
Surprisingly, if you look at a lot of like Disney's older films, not many of them ran past 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
At least if they were like fully animated.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah. Donald Duck, though, is like the classic. I don't know. He just is so evil. He's chaotic evil.
He really is. Like, I love the fact, though, that he's like, I don't like, it's just the entire, like, it makes me want to say that Disney had an issue with ducks, because you had Donald Duck, you had Scrooge McDuck, you had all these different,
and Donald was mean. Like,
that's what I mean. Like, they were all kind of a-holes.
Like, one of my favorite little cartoons was with Donald playing the trombone, like learning how to play the trombone at home alone. And Pete, which is like the big fat version of Goofy, is next door, and he's upset about the whole thing. Or no, it's the other way around. Pete's playing the trombone and Donald's mad about it. And so Donald's like trying everything he possibly can to get Pete to stop, including like essentially killing himself or killing him. And it's like, well then, all right. This got real dark real quick, and even in heaven things got bad. It's so bad.
I'm just gonna say it. Where else are you going to find Donald Duck and Daffy Duck in the same cartoon?
Right?
Roger Rabbit.
That's true.
And you realize that both of them are schmucks, and both of them deserved having the pianos dropped on them.
Yes.
Anyway, going back to real quick, actually, going to the whole how long some Disney movies were.
Oh, God.
Dumbo is 64 minutes as an average runtime for it.
And it traumatizes everyone in that short of a time.
Well, let's put it this way. When you got a big-lipped alligator moment, if anybody wants to quote those anymore, like that one, like, look, between the LSD trip that is that scene, as well as, like, also looking back at, like, Willy Wonka and thinking about that tunnel scene.
Oh, yeah.
That tunnel scene. I think that tunnel scene is worse for me than that LSD trip. I really think it was.
Yeah.
When you got Gene Wilder looking at you like dead in the eye, everybody's just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
He's really creepy in that scene.
It's such a good song, though, even if it is creepy. It's such a good song. I love the music in Willy Wonka, even if it is a really, really messed up show.
I mean, I loved it as a kid. Between that and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, I think my parents wanted to shoot me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Blue, number 2 for you.
No, you're number 3.
Wait. Hey.
Okay. Yeah. Beard
but
number 3.
I didn't do my number 2.
Or number 2.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
These are going to be blending togetder.
I just talked about Dumbo. Dumbo's not my number 2. What are you, crazy?
I wasn't sure. I didn't know. It's hard to tell.
So again,
Green's like, I don't know. That's what I'm
anymore. Beard, why did you come back? Anyway, so my number 2 again is going to be something that I'm going to err on the side of caution with. Tron.
Okay.
Both of them kind of fit the bill in that regard. I really, it's hard, especially after the second one came out, to split them apart. even though there is a 20-year difference at this point. But I think that the Tron series in general relies so heavily on CG that it kind of deserves to be in that array, because again, as a kid, 10-year-old me, or less than, I think at that point, looked at Tron and went, "Oh my god, those people are digital." And I'm just like, holy crap, how did they make this work? So the CG work, with it being like early days CG, I think makes it that it kind of fits that bill. And I personally just love the heck out of the Tron series. I think that Tron as a movie, a franchise, kind of does a lot of things right. It plays at this idea of how far are we going to end up going in a digital age. And I really do think that Tron Legacy is a worthwhile successor to that, in terms of like how it kind of builds up the brand, or at least builds up the story and where everything can go. I think it jumps the shark at the end a little bit, but I'll be completely honest that I would love to see where it ends up going from there. But the soundtrack between both of them was really good. Yeah, I was gonna say, you got Daft Punk doing friggin' the soundtrack for Legacy. But even the original, I thought was proper for like what they were trying to do with it, what they were trying to build. But I really do, I don't know, I really do think that they deserve being in that list, in that like number 2 spot for what they pioneered going forward. Like, I think that's the stupid thing about the lists that I have with stuff like this, like favorite Disney movies. Well, of course, like Lion King and stuff like that, I could easily put on here, but I'm more like what movies pioneered more, what movies did more, I think, for the genre that as a whole. And I really think that that's one thing that Tron and Roger Rabbit both kind of fit. And again, to a certain point, Dick Tracy as well. But as long as we're okay with that answer, I'm going with that one.
I'm good with that. It's causing discussion. It's giving us having.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, and it also shows like Tron. The big thing that stood out for Tron, in my mind, also was like finally, like I don't know if it's necessarily mainstream, but like it was finally like a wholehearted like acceptance of the EDM-esque music, right. And it's like, because there is a lot that is really good in that music, and I've always, like, as just personally, I've always really enjoyed that style of music. So to have have actual movies that were like, oh hey, no, we're gonna actually embrace this, and kind of the culture that's around that, I thought was always really fun. But
and there too, if you listen to the first Tron and you go back and listen to something like Blade Runner,
Yep.
If you listen between those two soundtracks, there are so many similarities with how Vangelis and I unfortunately don't know the composer for the first Tron, but they had such similar works in that regard, and I think that it was kind of telling for how the 80s was going. Right.
Yeah. And that actually is a good segue. Green is killing us in chat.
Oh, she's killing us.
It's such a good one. But talking about both movies that kind of surround music, and then also the impact of stuff. Actually, that kind of directly ties into my number 2, which is Fantasia.
Yeah.
Because Fantasia is, I mean, Fantasia was seriously one of the ones that it was like, it showed that Disney wasn't really necessarily afraid to do some darker material. Just that that wasn't their bread and butter. And, for whatever you want to say about Disney, they were able to do some dark stories. Like, go watch Fantasia and realize that I think it was like one of their early big productions. Like, this is a movie that they put out I think almost even before Snow White. Or no, maybe it was right after. I think Snow White was like 30, what was it, 37, 35?
Let me take a look.
And I think Fantasia was like 1940 or something.
To give you a small idea, like, because we've been looking at like wikis and everything here early on, because we're just so fascinated by the fact that, one, Disney has produced as much as they have.
God, yeah.
But two, the the movies that are out there. Some of them you don't even realize they have like a hand in it all.
Mhm.
Anyway, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was released in 1937.
Okay, but hold on right there, because Beard, I know we kind of talked about this beforehand, but I mean, just realize what you just said. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was released in what, 37?
37.
I mean,
that wasn't even World War II yet.
Right. I mean, go watch. I mean, regardless of how you feel about the complete, whatever, I'm not even going to go down the road of how they crucified that story. But like, how, like, regardless of what you feel for the story and how they presented it, I mean, the actual technical animation of Snow White, I mean, even by today's standards, even by today's standards, it's pretty strong. Like, I mean, so it just blows my mind that was in 37. Like, it just blows my
well, and then Fantasia was 1940 to give you the next example.
Okay.
So I mean, it was following Snow White, but still, I mean, Fantasia is just it's a very unique movie.
in that short of time, I'm highlighting this for a reason. But if you look at what they did previously, Disney had done had done cartoons and everything previously. Besides, they did like an anthology set and whatnot. You got to realize, of course, like Steamboat Willie and everything like that was already released. Mickey Mouse was still getting, or was large at this point, even in the 30s. But then Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was released in 37. Pinocchio comes out in 1940, also a pretty dark tale, if you really want to look into that pretty well.
Go watch that and tell me
and then
it's
you
not
look
dark.
and then you look into Fantasia and how, like, dark that is. 42, we had Bambi. Like, they
didn't pull punches too much on that one either.
No, like and Dumbo was released in 41 too, to just kind of go back to that one for a little bit.
Oh God.
If we go back to like looking at some of the films that they came up with, they were in an era where like comic books and everything were around and whatnot. They were also telling their own message and all that. And beyond, I feel like I'm taking this into like a whole different thing that I shouldn't be. But anyway, they were pioneering the ideas of how cartoons could be viewed as not just something for children. Mm-hmm. And I think that's overall what Disney has been so good at doing over the years, and especially early days, like what they pushed for and how they kind of how they produced a lot of their material and how they kind of built up their brand as a whole. But yeah, like, long story short, like, they did so much good with like showcasing how the medium can be like taken and turned and altering, and it was really early on in its life cycle. But that's all that I really kind of wanted to highlight with all of that, and why I was bringing up the idea of Fantasia coming out in 1940 the way that it was.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Not to mention, I mean, I guess if you, I mean, similar to the Donald in Mathmagic Land, if you haven't seen Fantasia, I mean, this is actually one of the few Disney movies that I have in the past and will continue saying you need to watch this at least once. Like, it is one of the Disney movies that I kind of argue was actually probably pretty original for them. Most of Disney I have a problem with because they kind of, let's just say, borrow heavily / just outright steal mythos from different cultures and really just do, in my mind, a large disservice to them because of the need that they need to like make it gentle for the audience that they're making to. But Fantasia did not really do that. Like, there's so much in Fantasia that. And the cool thing about Fantasia, on top of the whole thing that Beard's talking about with like the using the cartoonish animation as a medium for telling stories, is they also do that with music. Like, I think there's some spoken animation in Fantasia. I'm actually hard pressed
to.
There's
one scene, I believe
yeah.
I mean,
I think it's the Wizard's Apprentice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Because I think he uses the talking to cast the spell. Maybe I'm not sure if even. But anyways, like they use music to communicate the vast majority of what's going on in it, and that too is just. I mean, for people who are like, you know, more classically aware of where, you know, plays and theater, you know, come from, that's not a huge aha thing. But for the audience that was watching Fantasia, you know, for younger kids and stuff like that, that again, that's something that was being taught, and it's just really cool to see how they were doing that, I think.
Right.
Sorry, I can go on for Fantasia. Fantasia has some awesome stuff.
Mhm.
Good. You gave me a decent segue because we're talking about music. I'm going to talk about one of the most prolific
It was
Disney
100%.
composers.
It was 100% planned.
Sure, we'll say that.
Everything is planned on this podcast. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Then one of the most prolific Disney composers, at least within the last 20, 30 years, Alan Menken.
Dory from Finding Nemo. I'm kidding.
No, Dory's a composer.
What are you talking about?
I love Ellen DeGeneres, but dang, that would be an interesting movie. No, Alan Menken.
Yes.
He did so many different movies, but my favorite one that he did was Hercules.
Yeah.
Love the muses.
Heck yeah.
And you were talking about how Disney kind of butchers mythos. That is a perfect example of how
Yes,
they butcher
it
mythos.
You mean Hercules?
Hercules.
Hercules.
Oh, honey. Yeah, I remember.
I'll totally accept
seeing-
those muses, though. Those muses are
Right.
They do. Oh my god, they're so great.
They're sassy. They'll do work. I mean, I love them. They're so much fun, and I like Meg too. I mean,
Yeah.
she was not a hero. She wasn't a
She wasn't
damsel in
accurate.
distress per
She
se.
wasn't accurate at all to the original
No.
myth.
Oh no, not at all. But she was. I don't know. She was a person I could relate to.
She was a strong, independent Disney princess, and she didn't need no
Yeah.
man.
You tell him. But yeah. Yeah, Hercules.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I actually had like a book of Disney songs like transcribed for saxophone, and I learned like half of the Hercules ones. It was just it's almost my favorite of all time. Almost.
And real quick before you get off Hercules, Phil was
Oh God, yes.
amazing.
Was that Danny? No, it wasn't Danny DeVito, was it? Who?
I
it?
think it was. I was.
I mean,
Just
the persona
oh
was
my
certainly
god,
Danny DeVito.
it was
but-
just his like jadedness was just so perfect.
Yeah. Yep. Oh
But
my
yes,
God.
I-
It is Danny DeVito.
It is
by the way.
Danny. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
they might have
Goodness.
typecasted that character.
I
Just a
mean,
little bit.
they may have drawn the character after finding out who was voicing it.
Right.
That character looks
I
way
can't.
too much.
I
like
don't
him.
know. I don't know what you're talking about, Green.
Oh my goodness. All right, down to number one.
So, growing up, and I think that this is still something that many will say, there needed to be like more of those tough and rugged females, so to speak. There needed to be some stronger female representation, is basically where I'm kind of leading with this. And I think we ended up getting a lot of that with Disney pretty well. I think it's one thing like some of the princesses did very well. But there is one in particular that I still think they have underutilized very heavily, except for her first film, and that is Mulan.
Yeah.
Mulan is still, I think, one of the best Disney films of all time, because it actually does a fairly good job of showcasing a couple different things. One, the pressure that females within Oriental society and like ancient Oriental society faced in a still Hollywood-esque environment and whatnot, of course. But they did a fairly good job of showcasing that, and most of the challenges that went into doing so, like shame on your like dishonor on you, dishonor on your cow, dishonor on your ancestor, dishonor on your cow. Like that kind of stuff was very
Oh my
true.
gosh. Yeah.
Mushu
like,
was amazing.
Chris Rock.
Mushu
Oh my
was-
God.
Chris Rock was amazing.
Uh-huh.
But yes, like that's where I think they did a very good job of at least balancing it out for the kids and for the adults pretty well. They made it very acceptable for a lot of people. But this is the biggest thing that I will say overall is I think that they nailed a lot of what they needed to nail. They showcased what they needed to show off with the problems with how old Oriental society kind of was, or how it was put together. But yeah, lots of different problems that kind of ran into that. Also, yes, it was Eddie Murphy, not Chris Rock. I don't know. I do that all the time. I do that all the time. I don't know why I do that to him.
He takes offense.
But yeah,
to it.
I was gonna say, may as well take offense to it. Anyway, Mulan, though, I think is one of the, like, especially out of the 90s and everything, everybody keeps saying how they need more representation with females. I got it when I was a kid. It was there, and it still is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think overall, if we look back into the past and everything, there are plenty of strong females that have existed, even if they are just on cartoon shows. That just needs to be looked into a different spot. That's all.
I mean, honestly, I think Mulan was one of the very first ones that Disney, when they started pushing for the quote-unquote princess to be more of a strong female character instead of a kind of damsel character. Mulan was definitely one of the first ones to really push that.
Jasmine, I think, did a fair job with it. She still had her damsel moments, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But she wasn't like a full helpless woman.
Oh, no.
You also had Ariel, though, that I think also did a very good job with like what she kind of was. Granted, it didn't definitely fit to the old Little Mermaid story at all.
Hence
but
my
she
groan.
was still, yeah, I'm going to say. She was still at least somewhat represented in a stronger light than even what the story itself had given her. And then lastly, I think one of the other, well, if we want to go this far, like even look at Nala in The Lion King, like we also had some fairly strong representation there, I think, too.
It's just the whole, what is it, the name of the scale? I can't think of what it's called. It's basically whenever a female essentially can stand on her own, has a conversation with another female that is not talking about a man.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, Mulan is one of the very first ones I remember where she didn't have to be saved by somebody else.
Right.
She was actually the one doing the saving.
Yes. And of course, you've got to get down to business. Let's get down to business.
All I remember is that you can totally snowboard on a Mongol shield after blowing up the mountain with your fireworks.
Right?
I mean, this is why I like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because I can just glide down a hill on a shield. Anyway.
Oh, goodness. All right, Blue, you're number one.
Treasure Planet.
Ah!
Really?
Oh my God, Treasure Planet again. Okay, so I have to give I don't mind when you take like a story and you twist it to make something original. I don't mind that. And I'll be honest, my biggest distaste with Disney is that they used to. They have gotten better at doing it. For the most part. But like Treasure Planet was one of the first ones that I watched from Disney that I was like, okay, I know the origin of where they're coming from. And this doesn't I don't want to even say offend, but like it's not gonna piss me off to watch because they're taking a chance and they're reinterpreting it with a different light. And they just, I don't know, like I've always been a big science fiction fan. And so like the entire idea of like Treasure Planet was like the whole marrying of Treasure Island, obviously, with space. Like, and it was just, I just like the stuff that they came up with were just, and I mean, it's stuff that like really honestly would only work in a cartoon, like just crazy stuff. But it was also really cool. And I want to say Treasure Planet was around the same time that Titan AE came out. And that was Titan AE, which is not a Disney film, was seriously one of my favorite films. Like I just love the way that they did the story with Titan AE. And it's just it's another one of those like kind of unique twists on an existing story already. And so Treasure Planet was, I don't know. It's just they have a lot of pieces in Treasure Planet that it really struck me, and I have to give them credit for kind of taking a risk on that particular one, because that wasn't something that they did normally. At least not at that time. Like they were, I give Disney a lot of grief because they have a cookie cutter recipe. And to their defense, the cookie cutter recipe works really well. Like I understand why they do it, but as a consumer of stories, it's very annoying because it also encourages other people to follow the cookie cutter storytelling. And, it's just, I don't know. It makes it feel like the whole thing's watered down really. But Treasure Planet was just, I just remember that. I remember that movie kind of like the other two on my list pretty fondly.
Yes.
That's a good one.
I feel like Beard is going to have like the most like notable number one, because mine's also kind of a slightly off the beaten path Disney movie. And it has more to do with the fact that I love Sherlock Holmes than anything else.
That was one of my mentions. It's a great one.
It's such a good movie. The Great Mouse Detective.
Oh my God.
Is my number one Disney. And it's funny because
the Beagle is hilarious.
Oh yeah, right? And then the Watson character is really good. It's just such a cute version of Sherlock Holmes. But the funny thing is like Disney has such a like you were saying, a cookie cutter thing where it's very much built to be musicals for a lot of things. Great Mouse Detective was not. There was no music in there that I can remember that I could say.
Why I love it.
See, I love the musical ones though.
No. I don't mind the music. Like I don't mind the music at all. It's just, again, the cookie cutter. It's just like, I'm like, just come up with something new. Like I don't, because after a while you just feel like you're going to the same. I mean, it's like, there for a while it was like once you saw one Disney movie, I mean, really honestly, it felt like you saw them all.
Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to bring up the ones that I did, because they felt so different from the usual Disney spiel, if you will. They all kind of, they hang on a little different, even if they still kind of dig into the same general tropes. Largely, I think that's something that Marvel has also kind of sunk into as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and it's, I mean, again, going back, it's hard from a business standpoint to argue with them, because it works. I mean, like, I recognize it. I completely recognize why they do it, but
I mean,
it's still frustrating.
Games sometimes fall into the same problem, because if you go out of the generalized formula, then people don't buy it or want to watch it, or, oh, it's too different, I don't know if I'm going to like it. And just human beings don't like change. And I think that's why, even if we look at something like, I think that something like The Great Mouse Detective was brought out as a perfect, in a perfect time for what Disney was trying to do, because of all the other anthropomorphized animals that they were kind of running with like the Rescuers.
And Fievel.
They had Oliver and Company that they still were working with. Just all of these, those typical movies that were generally brought out around the same time. And they all kind of fit that same bill. I don't know what was up with like mice and chipmunks though. I think I still don't get that.
That's like the Donald Duck thing. I think they they went with they had a very, I'm assuming Walt Disney had a very strong feeling about rodents and ducks is all I can take out of this. Like,
well, I was going to say Tailspin and whatnot, not in DuckTales.
Oh my God, Tailspin.
DuckTales was amazing.
Tailspin was an awesome show. Man.
Yeah, I'm going to say between that and then
Darkwing Duck.
Okay, also Rance, before we get too far out of here.
I mean, I just named them all. Why don't
Mine are actually some of the newer ones. WALL-E, Big Hero 6. Big Hero 6 is, I feel weird saying Big Hero 6, because if you know what Big Hero 6 actually comes from, it's not quite like Big Hero 6 is
it's not as good as the manga. Okay?
Oh my God, but the manga is so messed up. Like,
it is so messed up.
It's one of those things where it's like, I completely understand and appreciate what Disney did with the manga. Well, like, I'm like, because oh my God, you can't do that. You can't do that.
what you're seeing is also, if you guys don't mind a little tangent here, like Big Hero 6 runs into the same problem as like what we're experiencing right now with like Alita Battle Angel, as well as also a couple of other films, Cyborg 009. Cyborg 009 and Alita Battle Angel are like these two perfect examples of how the manga versus what we got here in the West just don't line up whatsoever. They are entirely different from what they were presented with over here. And the same thing kind of happened with like Cowboy Bebop, and a few others around that era. Like 80s to 90s anime and manga never lined up with what was released, or it was meant to be as like a continuation of what had happened or a side story of what had happened otherwise. But the difference in how they're presented is just staggering. And knowing what Big Hero 6 was about and how it was presented over there versus what we got, it'd blow your mind with how different it feels.
Like, just go look up the Wikipedia for the summary of the story. It's night and day as far as like even the actual events in the story. It's not even related. But I mean, again, they did an amazing job in translating it and making it not the manga. But like, I don't know, I really appreciate that. And then Black Cauldron, actually.
Oh wow,
Black Cauldron.
I don't even know that one.
What?
I don't know this one.
You need to fix that because oh my god, it is. Okay, so for those who are like big D&D buffs, Black Cauldron is just oh my god. I don't even know where to begin. It's awesome and it's extremely unique and it's pretty much a lot of what we've been kind of talking about with the other Disney movies. There's a lot of like really mature themes going on in it, and they also really nailed the unique sense of humor, I think. With it, because they have oh my gosh, they really did a good job. And I think Black Cauldron was another one that was like 40s or 50s, if I want to say. It might have even been, I think it was like 40s or 50s. So it's another one that's it's dated very well.
I think if I remember it on the list, it was like 56 or
okay,
so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was around the same time that my dad was born, actually. The only reason I remember that is because that was one of his first films that he caught on to. Because releases outside of movies were so far apart because, of course, the media wasn't quite as fluid as what we have today. Now it's like 4 months, and you're like, "Where's the Blu-ray release? It's been out of theaters for 4 months." Back then, it was like a couple of years before you got it on media,
right?
But yeah, and I mean, and it was similar. It was like a similar vein of fantasy as like, you know, Lord of the Rings, like the feel. I mean, I'm not saying by any means was the storytelling quality on the same level, because I'll be honest, it wasn't. But it was very similar to like the heroic quest and, you know, all that. So, but yeah, it was a fun one, and the character was very like Sword in the Stone-ish portrayal of Arthur in the Disney, you know, movie. It's very like kid centered, which it's Disney. What are you expecting? But yeah, so that was my other. I think that was the only other. Wall-E was another one that I really, really wanted to mention too.
Newer ones are on mine as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, pretty much any of the newer ones. I've, you know, having a 5-year-old, I've been kind of forced to go see all the newer ones.
Inside Out was on my also ran.
Mm-hmm.
Such a good one. Moana.
Mm-hmm. Similar
and
for
Coco.
The same reason as we talked about Coco a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I cried like such a baby at Coco.
I still need to go see that one. That was one of the ones that my son went to see, and I did not actually have to go see with him, and so apparently that was a bad call on my part.
It's such a good movie,
according to Green.
It's such a good movie. I mean, it's not a typical Disney film because it doesn't follow the princess formula. It doesn't follow. It's a hero's journey formula, quote unquote, but at the same time, there's slight twists and turns, and I don't know. I'm with Black Flag. I cried during both Coco and Inside Out because it just hits you. It hits you real hard, and it's sweet. And any movie with good music really gets to me. Anyway, that was a very adamantly talked. I mean, there was a lot of discussion in this one, and
well, to be fair, I did
fault.
warn everybody that I might have strong opinions about it.
I mean, and that's fine. That is perfectly fine. I'm going to need to get a list from Beard about the Studio Ghibli stuff. That's technically Disney, I guess, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think from what I was seeing too, it's like pretty much everything.
It is. I think except for one or maybe two films. Short version is anything that was grabbed up and adopted to Blu-ray. They effectively pulled over from Disney, or to Disney rather. If it was on DVD, however, it may have been like a partnership or came out when Goro was at the head. Goro
which makes sense.
Miyazaki is his son. He had like temporary ownership of how the company was going for a little bit, and Hayao saw how it was going. He was like, "Nah, fam," literally took everything back.
It was a very short term.
It was very short term. That's how you ended up getting like Tales of Earthsea and whatnot,
Which is still
was
good.
not. It's still pretty good, but you feel the
yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
You feel it.
I also might be biased because that book series is amazing.
Yeah, like the books, again, something else where like, hey, Japan or the West or otherwise, could you please keep your hands off of the book? Like, please? But yeah, like Tales of Earthsea is really, really, I think a miss in that regard, which is a shame. But again, yeah, we can go down that list, or we'll be here for another like hour on just talking about Studio Ghibli again. There's only like Pom Poko, I think, is one of the only ones I would tell you to miss because it's so weird. But everything else, I still say is like top notch storytelling, animation, and so on. And for basically everybody that's out there, like if you're looking for anything else that like Disney just recently picked up or had a hand in some regard, this is it. Like Studio Ghibli is amazing. So make sure you look into some of them. I know that we already kind of like gushed about a couple of them, like Princess Mononoke, and I know Blue and I went on about Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, Howl's Moving Castle is so awesome.
There are plenty of others in there that have made my like top 3 favorite anime movies of all time.
I mean, even his
it's
kid
like
ones, even the kiddie,
Yeah.
like, quote unquote kiddie ones, like Ponyo.
Yeah.
I mean, they're silly and they're like don't go into them expecting like huge amounts of depth, but they're still just amazing. Like they're just simple.
Well, hang on.
Okay.
On.
Ponyo. Oh my God! Here we go.
Has more depth
Here we
with
go.
The Little Mermaid than the Little Mermaid
Oh
does.
no! Okay.
From
Okay.
Disney. Okay.
I will agree wholeheartedly with that, but you're setting the bar pretty low by saying that it's the Little Mermaid from Disney. Like, I mean, come on, like.
Yeah.
But like Spirited Away, Ponyo, those both are like, and arguably even my son really enjoys Spirited Away. He still loves that one. Ponyo, he loves. I mean, like, and they're also fun. That's the thing with Ghibli films is they're just fun to watch.
Well, and I will have to look it up, but there's a very familiar song that the two of you will know from and for those in the Destiny universe as well that follow the show outside of just this, that you will know from Porco Rosso.
Mm-hmm.
And it is it's something that our favorite that our one of our favorite EXO hum now and again. But plenty of wonderful things that I think they pull from. Again, I could go down the entire list for you guys if you wanted to, because I'm staring at the films right now. I own them all. Just absolutely fantastic movies. And the fact that Disney picked them up, I'm sure, as like a business move, that's obvious. But they picked it up to also make sure that the West kind of picked up more on like what was going on with them. I think it was as much of like an artistic move as it was as a money-making move in a lot of rights or something similar.
Probably.
but that's where, you gotta pay the bills to make everything work. But the fact that most people can otherwise see these, I think is honestly very well worth it. Very well worth it. Anyway, I'll leave it there before, like I said, I'm going to keep going on this. But again, Studio Ghibli and Disney being in partnership would change the entire list that I had here tonight, like entirely.
I mean, you're kind of my guide to that at this point, Beard, because honestly, I just have no context for that. And
I'm really surprised how many people are actually like coming to me like from this show being like, how do you know so much about animated stuff? I'm like, I grew up with it. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
Like you're not the only one that does that. Like a ton of people have been doing that as well with me. And I'm like, okay, guys.
Well, I'm going to actually
come into my world.
Oh,
come
gosh.
into the insanity that is.
He's got candy.
Oh, Lordy Lou.
But Blue's going to be kind of my go-to on this next week, because Blue's really excited about this topic. I'm not sure where I'm going to, like, what I'm even going to do with this topic. So next week's
This is
topic
making me nervous.
is top 3 game trinkets and charms. Which
yes!
is a suggestion by Parker Schilling again. So our buddy
I just thought this
Parker
was
sent this
interesting.
in. I don't know what to pick. I'm like,
That's why I was excited about it. I'm like, man, I mean, so the thing is like the reason I was excited for it is because like it's something that just it gets overlooked. It's like the flavor text, that is in Destiny. It just gets overlooked. I think that's just cool.
Are we doing things that like are literally just flavor text type charms, or like actually affects you, or does it matter?
I would imagine that it would be either. There's a couple things that I can think of off the top of my head in different games,
Skyrim?
like
Oblivion,
maybe, that do both,
green.
right? I mean, like there's like, especially in role playing games, there's just so much that just sadly just gets overlooked, and I think that's just really cool that to think about. Hey, let's pick a. I mean, I don't know if we want to like maybe. I don't know if there's even a way to limit that.
I say no limiting, because I'm going to have a hard enough time trying to come up with my favorite 3.
I mean, it's mostly, I think, for all of us going to be like RPG related, because that's where you generally find a lot of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you?
Which is why I'm excited.
Some dog tags.
Which is why I'm kind of excited about it.
We could technically do class items from Destiny, though, right? Because those were trinkets.
Oh yeah. I mean,
a lot of them. Yep.
You got Wei Ning's Kong, Thrall
Kong?
Sprint. Yeah, the see right there, Wei Ning's Kong. It was a Titan artifact, I believe, from Destiny 1, and it was literally a jade Kong that she dropped on the moon, and the Hive had it. Now, and the Hive had hold of it until basically our Guardian killed a random Hive that held it, and we got it back. God. It was, it was just like, and there was that was it. There was nothing more than that mentioned. But then you have like the Thrallskin drum. I think Vel Tarlo had, or Omar Vel.
Lucky Rabbit's Foot.
Lucky Rabbit's Foot. You had the Trice Wrapped thing, which still creeps me out and confuses me. There was tons of stuff. Ashiru's Hope was another one. There's tons of little trinkets from D1 alone that just got really cool connotations.
What was it? The Sins of Armin Tin?
Yes,
like
Armin Tin. Oh my
Warlocks.
God, that was so annoying. You are not the first hero nor the first villain to face each other. I'm like, God bless it.
I'm sorry. I'm just still stuck on Wei Ning's Kong, because now I have a picture of Wei Ning having a Kong that has little treats inside of it that
okay, fair enough.
To keep her busy.
I actually never thought about it like that, but that would also make a lot of sense. Because Kongs are nearly indestructible, and
Wei Ning likes to punch things.
So that makes perfect sense. Kabir. I think Kabir had the pocket watch.
Right.
So it was like, it's just like those little things, like the things that just kind of add flavor to the game that otherwise, I don't know. I love that type of stuff.
This will be fun then. Well, I think that wraps us up for this extended episode of Top 3. Thank you for joining us. As I go back into my studio voice, remember, everybody likes a list.